Hello everyone, welcome back to one of my videos. Hope you're liking what I produce on my channels, my blogs and on my mental health newspaper. This video, as you can tell by the title, is going to be fairly controversial, I suppose, because it's always a bit of an issue when people don't like being put into boxes and labelled. People are more complex than that, but I do feel this is something that has been at the back of my mind lately. Well, as you know, what I do is I just tend to raise awareness of mental health carers and mental health in general, and sometimes other things. Now, I know as I said before, I know we shouldn't really always compare the good deeds of carers. But to make things fair, there is a risk that all carers are alike, and this is not the case. And sometimes, reason being why this is, I feel is a bit of a problem, is because it can cause carers specific types of hardship. I want to talk about the differences between carers and mental health carers in this video, but first I think it's only fair enough to talk about the common things which all carers, mental health carers of others with learning disabilities, or carers who are caring for someone suffering physical problems, heart problems, paralysis. What are the common themes before I move on to the differences between a mental health carer and a carer? The first thing I would say is that carers are, the thing with all carers is that carers are caring for someone usually close to them, especially if it's a relative, then a friend or neighbour. I don't want to go off issue. I've heard an excuse from a social worker that if the relationship between the carer, I'm talking about a mental health carer, or the cared for, breaks down, and I'll come into this later on down on the video, then they assume that the next door neighbour would step in as a carer. Boy, just they wait until I make a video about mental health professionals' excuses. What I'm trying to say here anyway is that the person who has the greatest concern for the cared for is usually the carer, because they usually spend the most time with them. Even if the relationship does break down, they have that concern. They will make up the most noise. And do not be fooled that the whole family is the carer, because I deal with my suspicions, and I want to write a blog about this, or video, is that within the family, I do feel there's always that particular person in that family unit that does perhaps most of the chores of the carer. So that's one of the common themes that all carers share. They are caring for someone. Yeah. Another important factor, a very important factor, is that all carers in common, what they have in common with each other is that they are unpaid. They are not paid to do that role. So hence, when someone is critically ill, carers may have to give up whatever they're trying to do. It might be give up time from work, or time for themselves, or what they do out in society, their social time. I like to make this point. No way am I seeking to blame the cared for in this video. No way I'm saying that they're a burden. That's not really what it's about. The awareness of these videos is to raise the situation of carers, mental health carers. And to be honest, there's not that many. When you think about it, there's not that many videos or blogs. Yeah, there's some. But I will go into this. Not many videos or blogs about carers. You probably, if you type mental health, you're more likely to find quite a vast range of video blogs, vlogs about someone going through mental health issues. Not that there's a problem with that. I advise carers to listen, to watch those things. But I want to add something to them. I want to add that carer's voice, because mental health carers exist. They're there. So what was I saying? Yeah, they're unpaid. So this is when obviously a carer, mental carer or carer, will step in and trying to do their best, whether they have that knowledge or not, in order to try and care for someone close to them. Although there are those, who have that resources, they may pay for someone to provide care for their loved ones. And those that are paid to do that role may be what we would call a care worker. Notice the term worker in that title, because they provide that care. They're paid to do it. Most carers, they don't have no union. They're not really paid to do that role. So if you look at the third one, another common theme that all carers share is that they're usually emotionally attached to the person they care for, even if the carer cannot cope providing that care, and they back out of that caring role. Who used to say that they're still not emotionally attached in some form to their loved ones? So we shouldn't really criticize those who are unable to cope, especially if there's a risk that they become unwell themselves. Fourth point is that those providing care can have some form of stigma. Okay, mental health carers especially, because unfortunately people can be ashamed in providing support to someone suffering mental health problems. For instance, bipolar, psychosis, depression, and a whole lot of other terms. I'll delve into this a bit more closely during the video later on. Two more common themes. Other common themes is the lack of awareness regarding carers. Yes, this is common. Not only just mental carers, carers all around. There's a lack of awareness, since there can be confusion of the misuse of the word carer. There's not always confusion as well. Sometimes it's done on purpose. Now, some people think carer and care worker are the same thing. I've explained it's not the same thing. Others misuse the word care for their own ends, knowing full well that they are care workers and that they have their rights protected, perhaps by a union. Other people who care for loved ones are scared of the word carer because they feel they're just doing their duty, perhaps as a family member. Say someone's a husband to their wife, and their wife becomes really unwell, and then someone says to them, "Well, you're caring for her," and they say, "No, I'm just doing it for better or for worse in the marriage." Same for a brother and sister or cousin, is that they feel it's out of duty. Fair enough, but that's just going to show the awareness of the word carer. I'll go on to the last one, I suppose. Talking about the last thing that carers have in common is about talking about their rights being protected, which is a common theme with carers and mental health carers. Is in their rights that can be infringed upon due to services perhaps ignoring, either out of neglect or lack of education or lack of resources. carers' rights can be infringed upon because carers might not know about their rights, and unfortunately carers might not be offered a carers assessment. I mean, they have to ask for it. They might not be offered a carers pathway. They probably don't even know what a carers pathway is. They might be locked out of information due to confidentiality problems, which really can be another word for red tape. Often it's not always confidentiality per se. It just slows down that recovery for that cared for, slows down the carer supporting their loved one. And unfortunately, confidentiality can be used to cover up mistakes. It happens. Let's be honest. But anyway, I'm going to delve more closely into now the differences between a carer and a mental health carer. Watch this space. Now, before I continue with the differences between a carer and a mental health carer, feel free to make any comments on the video regarding other common themes between all carers or differences between a mental health carer and a carer. Now, a carer cared for someone who could suffer more physical problems than mental health problems. Not to say that there are no mental health problems. It is a lot more complex than I'm giving this credit for. However, a mental health carer is firstly caring for someone suffering mild to severe mental health issues, first before physical health problems. Not to say later on down the line, the physical health problems do not become apparent. So I'll repeat that just to make sure I'm getting that message through. Carers, often when you think of care, they can often tend to care for someone perhaps suffering physical to severe mental health, severe physical problems. Mental health carer is someone caring for someone suffering mental health problems that may be even more apparent than the physical health problems. Not to say later on down the line, mental and physical health don't become even worse, which they can often do. Now, as stated, this video is mainly to raise awareness of mental health carers, since there are several reasons why there is a lack of focus on mental health carers. A good one is awareness days and events. Now, notice we have such awareness events and Carers Awareness Week and Carers Rights Day, but then count how many mental health awareness days there are, and I'm going to just raise a few. We've got Dry January, that's to do with alcohol addiction. Blooming Monday, depression. Eating Disorders Awareness Week, Self-Injury Awareness Day, Stress Awareness Month, World Bipolar Day, Parkinson Awareness Day, Mental Health Awareness Week, Samaritans Awareness Day, World Suicide Prevention Day, ADHD Awareness Month. I could go on. But notice something here. I'm sure there's people out there, I feel really sorry for them. They don't have a carer, they don't have a family member or a friend stepping in to try and support them. And perhaps they are using the services. But if you look closely enough at all these awareness days and awareness weeks, I really, really do hope that they take time to mention the family or the carer behind those suffering, each and every one of those illnesses that I've mentioned. And I'd like to make it clear, it's not that I'm asking for mental health carers awareness day. I'm not asking for that at all. And I'm not even asking that these days should be wiped off and that they shouldn't exist. Of course they should exist. Of course they should raise awareness of these illnesses, because, again, they're misunderstood. There's a lot of stigma there. Public may not even know what ADHD is. Of course they won't know. It's a specific mental health term. Stress isn't even there's not enough awareness on stress, yet we all suffer from stress, different levels of stress. How do you cope with it when it gets out of hand? Hence for these awareness days. I'm going to just jump straight into it. Let's look at the differences now. Mental health carers suffer a lot of stigma. I repeat, mental health carers suffer a lot of stigma. Now, do you remember earlier on that there is stigma in mental health? It is a touchy subject, and it is like walking on eggshells. Say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, and you can cause a lot of upset. Those suffering mental health sometimes are right, not wanting to divulge that they have mental health problems. Now, notice I say sometimes because, I'm going to say this is the worst scenario, because there can be a risk of harm to themselves or someone else, and I'm not sitting on the fence when someone comes to harm and the sufferer says it was their right to confidentiality. It is too late. That's the worst scenario. That's a serious incident, and that's also a problem of stigma as well. Going back to stigma, unfortunately, mental health carers can be very wary of also disclosing their loved one is suffering mental health problems. After all, it's not always the sufferer that gets the embarrassment or bullying when someone calls them, and I'm sorry, I'm going to be saying these words out of awareness sake, that that person is a nutter, lunatic, idiot, dumb, crazy, or fool, or even more worse terms that a mental health sufferer can be called. However, the mental health carer can get the following phrases. Now listen, I've gone through this myself, 15 years and counting and still counting. Now, you can, mental health carer can get the following phrases. Oh, there is that person caring for that nutter. Or, why don't you put that lunatic where they belong? Or, that family is weak. They have a dumb family member. So you can get the picture. If I just wrap this up in this part, a mental health sufferer can get a lot of stigma due to, unfortunately, some members of society thinking they can get a kick out of putting them down because they deem mental health illness as a weakness. And the carer or someone desperately trying to support that mental health sufferer can also, perhaps not this same harsh levels, but it still is painful. They can be ridiculed because, again, people can get the kick out of those trying their best to make things better for their loved ones. Now, that's one difference between a mental health carer and a carer. And again, not to say that carers also don't get attacked. But I do feel, in fact, I'm sure stigma is 10 times higher. I don't know the statistics is higher for mental health carers. The second situation, which we can regard as differences between mental health carer and a carer, is insight. Now, let's say a carer is caring for someone suffering heart problems or perhaps a severe physical illness. Well, a sufferer is more likely to be aware of their symptoms. Now, there might be some denial. Obviously, no one likes to be told that they have a difficult, awful symptom, difficult, awful illness. Diabetes is another. And I'm sure there's many more. But as I said, because it's not affecting their mind, they're more likely to be aware of their symptoms and will need the support of the carer with perhaps moving around and other chores, emotional support, other things that, I've not mentioned. Let's just say that most times the caree or the cared for knows what they need. Now on to the mental health patient. Yes, there are times when they have the insight, even though still suffering mental health problems. But then there are times when they do not know when they need the treatment. This is down to insight because mentally unwell or the mental ill health actually affects the mind. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm trying to make this as simple as I can. And of course, I don't care if anyone just says, I discredit you. Mental health sufferers are strong survivors. Yes, I'm aware of that. But we cannot ignore the problem of insight. We just can't ignore it. It's not fair to those desperately trying to support them. This causes, again, the mental health carer to, as I said, desperately try to advocate on behalf of their loved ones when insight is lacking. However, there are other issues that can make life very difficult for the mental health carer, especially if procedures are not followed, leading to lessen the damage of a relapse. And a good example is that a carer is actually pleading to a doctor or mental health professional saying, look, their loved one is about to relapse, and they are very concerned and they're very worried that if nothing's done, if the loved one don't get the treatment or the service, it's going to be a serious incident. It's going to be a tragedy. Okay. One thing I should mention is if this is upsetting, it's a difficult subject, please just pause or stop the video. It is a difficult subject. I am aware that there's people out there who might be watching this and unfortunately gone through a difficult and tragic time. But I do feel it's my duty as a mental health carer to raise that awareness, because if I don't feel it's fair that people can wait around. We don't want any more tragedies. Okay, another major factor on the differences between carer and a mental health carer is relationship breakdown due to insight. Because many of those suffering physical and sometimes mental ill health are aware of the importance of their carer. Now, this is not always the case, and the mental health patient or the service user or mentally unwell is suffering severe mental ill health. It is as if the carer was almost to blame. Now, I don't have to stats for this, but then do you wonder if I need them? Who is to say that the mental health carer does not suffer heartache every time they plead to their loved one to get the treatment, to get treated? And yet the mental health patient or the mental health caree refuses treatment, or the services feels the patient does not need treatment, or perhaps there's no beds. A good example is someone suffering from eating disorders. You can have someone within their family or the carer saying, look, for goodness sake, get treated. Your life is at risk. And eating disorders is now at that stage where it's almost affecting the person's mind. They can't see that they need that treatment, and yet their life is at risk. It's a very difficult and emotional situation not just for the carer, but for the cared for to even go through, and it's affecting their relationship. Not to say this doesn't happen to someone who's caring for someone who doesn't have a mental health problem. This can be a problem of denial, but remember, I'm talking about insight, which is a common theme for those suffering mental health problems. Regarding relationships, we also get the idea that the carer's world is full of doing the role out of love, and that people love to be cared for. However, something does not seem right. It's like it does not fit the facts when it comes to the world of the mental health carer. Relationships become strained as the mentally unwell gets upset of being sectioned time and time and time again. And the mental health carer is the one that usually can sometimes get the blame. The services almost seem blameless because, who does the patient gets discharged to? It's like the mental health carer is told to get on with it. Pick up the pieces. Yeah, they've been discharged from the ward. You get on with it. Oh, you can get family therapy. But then the patient can always say, I don't need that. And besides, not all inpatient wards are known to treat the patient as good as other wards. And the patient or the caree or the carer's loved one can tend to take this out on the mental health carer or the family, after all, who signed that form to have them admitted, to have them sectioned. It's not all smiling and happy faces in the mental health carer's world. We also have to consider how many families and carers have not been harmed or attacked by someone suffering heart problems. Now, I know this is controversial. I know it's hard to bear, but families and carers, the public, look, even the sufferer can come to harm if support was given too late. The mental health carer unfortunately seems to have to convince the services that there's a problem. And it's not always on health matters. It can be on the need for financial support, emotional support, care planning, and even the carer's own carer's needs and carer's assessment. Of course, when insight is regained, who is not to say that the caree is not thankful for the support of the mental health carer that's gone out of their way to make sure that they're on the road to recovery. This does happen. But then how many mental health carers have also given up and have said no more, or end up becoming unwell and becoming depressed, feeling that they failed? Okay, the next, perhaps one of the last ones I'll cover. I mean, there's many, many more. I'm just picking out the most common differences, most common themes between a carer and a mental health carer. And the last one will be complexity. Again, this is slightly controversial difference, because carers caring for someone who does not have a mental health issue can still experience some complexity dealing with severe physical complications. It's as if the carer is trying to diagnose what the problem could be if the cared for symptoms get worse. The thing is, with mental health carers, complexity can multiply. Why is this? It is not even enough to lump mental health carers together, because unfortunately we have a different range of mental health problems, mental health symptoms. For instance, a carer caring for someone suffering self-harm, self-injury would tackle symptoms differently compared to a mental health carer caring for someone suffering psychosis or, as I said, an eating disorder. Not all mental health carers are alike. Take on the fact that if an experienced mental health carer tries to raise a relapse issue with a general practitioner or a GP, you might have some confusing dialogue with the doctor, who unfortunately may not always be sure how to tackle that mental health issue, and they might not always have the time as well. What is worse is what happens when a bipolar sufferer or even someone else suffering mental health problems pick up other mental health issues because of being unable to cope, or what we call a term called co-occurring disorders, which means a mental health sufferer begins to pick up multiple mental health disorders. Well, the mental health carer better get out a copy of the psychiatrist's Bible, because, well, welcome to the world of the psychiatrist. Now, remember, I am not saying that I'm a mental health professional. I'm not saying other mental health carers are mental health professionals. But I'm telling you, in order to try and cope and become a mental health carer, they've got to have some knowledge of what they're dealing with, and it is complex. You would not expect a carer caring for someone suffering heart problems to open up a medical book to learn about the heart. Perhaps to a point on how to watch out for certain issues, fair enough. Or perhaps a carer caring for someone who is paralyzed to examine medical books about paralysis. Fortunately, the mental health carer may have to do a little research if services are lacking. Well, anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. This might seem to be a bit of a horror story. Believe me, it's not. I feel that raising awareness of such issues can only shine a light in the darkness or create a path for others to walk down. Being a carer or mental carer can also be rewarding and a valuable experience. You are there for your loved ones because you care. They would probably do the same thing for you. And when we have a caring society, no one need fear the stigma, fear the labels. Carer, patient and professional would feel supported. We can all work together. But until then, we should raise the unique differences in which we all need that support upon. Good luck on your caring journey.